Alright, peeps. So we've looked at a few things, haven't we now, to kind of get our heads around what it takes to establish and build a data culture. The main thing you've got to realise is your data culture is it's all about you and how you as a group of people or a group of individuals come together and release a lot of the controls that you kind of traditionally have. Because what you really want to be doing is actually getting people to start to say, I'm willing to come forward with this idea and this suggestion. Can it improve our business? Will it make us a better company? But that level of freedom and that level of faith, of honour, of anything, trying to think of the right adjectives to go with it, that level of trust requires a genuine belief that your ideas aren't just going to get shot down and that it's going to be something that's going to benefit you as an individual. And that's kind of the key thing. Fundamentally, people, when you get right down to it, they look after number one first, right? There's no wrong with it. I'm not going to try and argue or do anything like that, right? But really, good, moral, proper behaviour has to benefit the individual. That's kind of the point of it, yeah? You can go through the semantics of anthropology and all this, right? But really, it comes down to moral behaviour benefits the individual over amoral behaviour is kind of the point. And if your moral code as a whole doesn't do it, look, I'm not going to get into it. This is going to go way too far, right? We're going to have do a training session, something like that, yeah? We can go out, we'll have a talk about it or something like that. But yeah, really believe very strongly that it's our duty to build good companies that are based in good morals, but that comes from the individual feeling safe in that environment. So how do we do that with a data culture? Yeah, how do we get that aside? Right? What we've done, if you remember, really, and we had an intermission last week, didn't we? We talked about process mining, which is, I think, it's a really key component in actually how you do your governance. But we've kind of covered that the drivers for a data culture have been partly hardware and partly the internet and the way that it's kind of made everything accessible to you. You get stats on who's viewed this, who's viewed that. Right? Trust in your teams. We've kind of talked about that already, that you need a group of people coming together wanting to interact together rather than being mandated to. And if they're mandated to, or they're forced to, or they feel that if they make a mistake, their job's at risk, you've got an issue. And it's not to say, you know what, would never fire someone. Right? There might be things where you go, you know what, nah, right? But it should never be about data because you're data driven, it means everyone must have agreed that that idea was right and evaluated it. And that becomes a really important part, that it's not just me saying we're going to do this tomorrow. It becomes a case that I think this is the right thing to do because of ABC. And then my colleagues will look at it and go, really? Or they might go, that's a great idea. Let's give that a go. It's key that you start to think in terms of that rather than being an old-fashioned patronage-led organisation. You become a data-driven organisation. So we've now got to this third pillar, haven't we? So we've talked about the people side, that we've got with people and with trust. We've talked about the process that needs to support that evolution and that way of doing things, and that the framework has to support the people building that trust. And the last and key ingredient in this, the third pillar as it were, is of course technology. Okay, and it's going to be about the scale, the scope, the cost, the ease of use. All these things are really important to that. Man, you stop saying really. All these things are vital to what you're going to do. As far as this goes, what you will find it comes down to most, right, is scale and scope. Okay, they're kind of the key ones that you're going to have. Right, governance is useful. Ease of use, yeah. I've seen a lot of businesses go, ease of use. Who cares? Right? Ease of use, I think, is important. Cost is one that is central to whatever it is you're going to do. And if you get it wrong, it will really blow up your business, and your data culture just stops. Okay, cost is one of the most difficult ones to fully quantify beforehand and as you go into it. I've sat in enough meetings with enough products, enough vendors to, I know the cost. It's a headache. Okay, and cost and total cost of ownership are two very different things. It's important that you understand the total cost of ownership for this, and that you, as a data-driven organization, are looking at that figure rather than just a cost. Okay? I think that is a key differentiator that you need as a business to be aware of and to think of. So what do we talk when we're talking about the overview of this? Yeah, like the big ticket items. Yeah, the scale and the scope. So your scale is always going to be, right, unstructured data. Where's that coming in? Do you have any unstructured data in your business? Have you got any CSV files? Have you got any Excel spreadsheets? Have you got any SharePoint lists of document libraries? Take your pick. Okay, the amount of these that you find, it's XML files that are elsewhere, log files that need to be parsed, unstructured data sets. Yeah, and then you're going to get your structured data sets where you might be lucky in a SQL database. You might find you're in an ERP system, SAP, which is brilliant. I love SAP and the way it, like, KNVA3 tables. Huh? What? Anyway, right? You'll find that there's lots of subtleties in here. And how much of that do you need to be able to bring in and analyze? Okay, the scope of what you're doing, you've got the ideas, yeah? And I always talk about the big four. So operational, management, strategic, and regulatory. Regulatory, legal requirement. There you go. Okay, so they're kind of your four drivers, aren't they? Okay, and what most people are meaning when they talk about BI, right, and business intelligence, is they tend to say, oh, well, MI, right? So management. So they're looking at management reports because I'm a manager. I want to know stuff because my boss is going to ask stuff, right? If that's just your scope, I think you're cutting yourself off to spite your face, really, now, especially with the technology. I understand why it was that way, but now the technology exists that enables you to really get to that next level. So operational, what do we mean? It's kind of like what's happening now. So you might have like a warehouse. We've got this many orders in. What do we need to pack? Where are we? How many have still got to pack this shift? Those are the sorts of things that you would want in an operational report. Okay? There's going to be different requirements at each of these levels as well. Okay, if you think an operational, they might need it up to the second. That might need to be a live report. Operational is probably the only one I'd really say you need to have live about. Yeah, live. Because there's a real benefit in knowing, hey, I've got this. If you think, hey, from takeaway, online takeaways seems to be happening now a lot, doesn't it? Yeah. So you'd have your operational reports, which would be at the individual takeaways, wouldn't it? That, this is how many I've got this many to do, I've got this many to do, I've got this many to do. I've got an order has just come in from Geordie Intelligence for their lunch, right? This needs to get shipped out. We need to get this prepped, done, out the door. Okay. You're then going to have like management reports, which are going to be potentially to a customer that I might be able to look and see how many orders I've made, whatever's happening around that. Where potentially as well, there's something going on for the senior leadership team of the internet vendor, that there's something, and for the leadership teams of the shops. All those things are going to happen. You're then going to have your strategic reports where you're going to need to be able to turn around and say, oh, right, we're actually looks like we're selling loads of takeaways in Newcastle, but not so many in Gateshead. What can we do to expand our market share in Gateshead? So you kind of get to that idea of strategic, that you can then take some management reports or some canned versions of those and start distributing them around shops in the Gateshead area to say, look what we can do for you. We can help you turn your business around. This is the level of sales that we've brought to a comparable business in a different area to you. It starts to become key. And then lastly, you've got your regulatory. So you're going to have like the core reports that you have to do. Like you've got to do legal, financial reporting has to be done. Actually, what have you done to pay tax? That has to be done. You've got the reporting that has to be done in terms of how many employees do we have? What do we do in terms of their tax, national insurance, anything else that you have? Do they have health insurance in where you live, in the country that you're based in? Is it a requirement? All of those things start to piece together. And if you're thinking and saying, well, I'm going to build a report pack, does it cover all four of those? Does it cover three of those? Do you feel I've forgotten something? Have I missed one? You know, as I say, I'd love to know. I mean, these are the four I kind of think of, but might not be the complete list. Once you start to think in terms of, right, what are we doing? Where are we getting the data from? And what do we need who do we need to present the data to? You start to move to the next side. Yeah? And the next side is, of course, your governance side, which we said this is key. So, you know, we've talked about the plan, do, check, act cycle. Others are available. I'm not going to say, you've got to do this. Right? But it all kind of comes down to this, doesn't it? To the ability to request something, the ability for it to be evaluated, the ability for it to be scheduled and implemented. Each of those four layers has to report back, though, doesn't it? So we can track progress of improvements and evolutions over time, so that we understand that on the 1st of July 2021 we're going to make a change to it, or we understand that on this date something's happening, and downstream and upstream can be aligned so that we all know what's happening. Yeah? And if you can start to think in terms of the scale and scope that you've got, and in terms of the governance layers that you're going to wrap around your tooling, right, then you can start to say, right, this is the technology platform that I think will work for us. Or more importantly, you can start to build a tender document to say, this is what we're looking for. These are our hard requirements. This is what I have to have. What platform does it? What are my options? Okay. And then once you've got that, you can evaluate them against your requirement set, and then look at things like the other two we put, like cost. Don't forget cost and total cost of ownership, ease of use. So how easy is it going to be for us to bring it into our environment? How easily can we implement what we started with? Yeah. So my personal view, for me, okay, and this is the results of me doing this for many, many years, is every business has structured and unstructured data. If you are going into this and saying, we're structured only, we don't have any unstructured data, we're brilliant, right? Give your head a shake, you're wrong. Okay? And I'm sorry to say it, but you are. You will have, in your business, you'll have drop-down lists that are manually maintained. You will have normalizations where potentially you're fixing just text errors in your data. Stuff like that will be happening in every business, and that needs to be considered. I have yet to come across a business that has no unstructured data. Okay? There are steps we can do to take unstructured data and bring it into a structured environment. Okay? But you might find that you don't necessarily need to. Okay? It's a key one. You need to think very clearly that you will have structured and unstructured data. Okay? A management side, what you don't want to have is something that's just going to burden a group of people. Okay? The analysts is what I've seen. Oh, well, the analysts can manage this. It's great, no problem. Okay? That's not how it works. Okay? Or, oh, IT can do this. They're great. They don't mind. No, that's not how it works. Okay? At this day and age, we need to be looking at self-service. So as much as possible, is your solution manageable in a self-service mindset? Yeah. So can somebody create something and share it themselves, or do they need somebody else to be involved to do it? Okay. It's a little thing, but it causes so much pain not having self-service. Nowadays, in this day and age, there is no reason why I would say to ever consider a tool that doesn't do self-service. You might, in your business, have a use case that says, oh, self-service, no, right? But I would challenge you again, okay? Your control plane is key for this. So if your control plane, which is going to enable you to determine what self-service means, is good enough, there's always self-service. You might say, well, we're a highly regulated art business. I'm in MI6. We can't just have anybody able to share reports and have it. Right. So use a control plane, determine what they can do. You can share it with these people or downstream or whatever. Right. Build what you need to do, but you still want to be aiming for self-service. Because if you're saying, oh, well, forever, right. Okay. Right. And then cost. Your cost is going to be such an important factor in the success or failure of your data culture that you need to be aware of it. Never, ever, ever put a cost in a tender document though, okay? Don't say, oh, we've got this amount to spend. No. Or I don't want to spend. No. Right? Your whole team, speaking with vendors, make sure they are aware. Do not discuss cost. Okay, never. Because you'll be very surprised to find, oh, they came in on budget. Right? And then hidden costs appear later. Done enough of those. I don't want to you doing it again. So cost control is key. So what you can ask them is, what's your scalable cost model? How do we implement cost control? What have you seen? Can we have a call with a vendor or with one of your customers who has implemented cost control? Okay, it is something that you need to be aware of, because even the best tool in the world, if you get it wrong, you'll suddenly find your costs go up. And if your costs start going up and it becomes a case saying, well, no, you can't have access. No, you can't have access. No, not you. You, no. Okay. You'll suddenly find that all the goodwill that you've built up in terms of this is our new way of doing things, it's just gone out the window. So it's something you need to be aware of, and you need to think, how are we dealing with this and what are we doing to make it all work? Okay. So with all that in mind, right, bear in mind, I've done this a few times. Okay, I've come back time and again, and it's come back to me. Power BI has been the one that we've ended up with as a result of looking through the others. So I'm not going to say who else I've looked at on here. I thought long, what should I say? I don't want to. Okay, I'll put a link down below where you can go to download or have a look at the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant for BI tooling. I don't like it. I think it's a bit one-sided in the way it presents things. But I think having looked at what it is and been with Power BI throughout its whole evolution, I've come back time and again to Power BI is the right one. So what we'll do next week is we'll have a look at Power BI in a bit more detail and see really why I think it's the right choice for me as a vendor, as a person, and hopefully you guys will say, oh, do you know, that makes sense to me. He's not just full of rubbish. So what do you reckon then? It is a really tough topic to talk about when we start talking about the technology pillar. And if I'm honest, it's the area I've least wanted to do in this video series, but I knew we were going to have to do it at some point. A good data culture can be supported by a pad and paper, okay? It doesn't need a whiz-bang fancy analytics tool. It doesn't need a Power BI. It doesn't need a Tableau. It doesn't need a Click. It doesn't need a Lookers, okay? What you need really is that mindset that we as a group of people are going to support each other and drive each other to use the data to elicit a response, okay? And that response should be an evolution or a change to our business. And that's the only way to be. That's like the big myth of a data culture. It's complicated. It's not complicated. It comes down to, how can we trust our colleagues and ask them to just look at the data, and rather than saying, well, I reckon it's this, it's probably a bad idea for how we do business. What we want to be saying is, we've got growth in this area, we're contracting in this area, we've got issues here, we've got good here. How can we take the areas that are going well and bring them into the areas that are doing badly, and vice versa? Vice versa, you wouldn't want to take the areas that are doing badly into the areas that are good, right? But do you know what I mean? It becomes about saying, how can we benefit from one area that's doing well and actually replicate that in other areas? What's that going to take? And by moving away from a culture of patronage, you actually really evolve everything, because you start to diversify. So now you've got the idea of having a great, diverse business that's moved away from a culture of patronage, moved into a culture of data-driven decision-making. And you're starting to leverage the benefits of having different ideas actually come into the boardroom or into your business as a whole, and that everything doesn't just flow down from the boardroom. It's actually something that's flowing up from people's experiences, from what's going on. And that doesn't just mean your grassroots. If you're at the point where you've got people in the boardroom who are willing to say, well, I might have gone to college or university and they said this, they said that, right? But what I'm seeing is the other. Yeah, that is where you start to transform your business. So I hope you're going to come back to keep joining us on the Fridays as well for something for the weekend, right? Some great videos going on about how you can use Power BI at different layers within your business. Okay? And most importantly, stay safe, keep looking after each other, yeah? And stay trusted. Ta-da.